October 3rd, 2025. A day to be remembered in infamy. It is being dubbed as Musical Armageddon. This is All Gas, No Trash. My name's Adam, and hopefully you enjoyed my transatlantic accent. Man, that was very difficult to say, but this particular episode is about Taylor Swift's release date for her new album and the ramifications in the music industry for that specific date. We do have to do the Game Rage No Curse Minute before we get to the program. Just want to give a quick shout out to everybody that has been subscribing and commenting and liking our videos on YouTube, and to all our listeners on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, RSS. We sincerely appreciate you. Please continue to listen and support us in whatever way you can. We really appreciate it, and that'll be the Game Rage No Curse Minute. So let's talk about the potential negative side effects of releasing on October 3rd, which again is the release date of Taylor Swift's latest album. And for my first point, I'd like to talk about publicity. Now, there are numerous ways to go about getting attention to yourself, but I think it's going to take a combination of one or many of these avenues, one of which includes the obvious, posting on social media and running ads to hopefully reach a broader audience and converting that audience into fans. And second, there is the more traditional route of having your music featured on a local radio station or being playlisted on a digital streaming platform. And lastly, having an article written about you from a music publication or blog, which could be Rolling Stone, Billboard, Pigeons and Planes, Brooklyn Vegan, and Pitchfork, if I didn't already say that. So amongst those 5 entities, I imagine that Taylor Swift is going to be top of mind for all of them, because if we're talking about click-through rates and ad revenue, I mean, you have to draw as much attention to yourself as much as an artist does in trying to read an entire article, which most people won't do these days because of their TikTok brain or their short attention span. So an artist that seems to capture the minds of all is Taylor Swift, and a global sensation. So that's where the potential problem arises for a mid or small artist to get attention to themselves. Well, Taylor Swift is going to be the juggernaut that is going to be talked about extensively leading up to the album, and of course, well after the release. She's going to be a topic that is going to be exhausted for the next potentially 60 to 90 days, and probably well after that. Well, that's where you as an artist run into a problem, because if you decided to release an album and you planned it out 90 days in advance, and up until this point you have been releasing singles and running ad campaigns on social media, well, now essentially that is a sunk cost for you, because for all the money that you spend and the releases that you have been putting out consistently on a monthly basis, well, that essentially goes out the window because somebody like Taylor Swift comes along and she decides October 3rd is the release date of the album, and well, everybody else can get out of the fucking way. The analogy that comes to mind for me is you are a small independent movie studio competing against the likes of Marvel and Disney. Now you have this original intellectual property that is quite awesome, and there's been some buzz that has been written about you, and the test audiences that have seen the movie are talking about it and hopefully getting people interested in this release, versus you competing against an Avengers movie at the box office, and you have this October 3rd release date. Well, in spite of the fact of how well you have done building up anticipation for this release, well, the problem is that Avengers, the franchise, is such a bona fide juggernaut of a financial winner that everybody else forgets about your small, awesome independent movie
And unfortunately, that's just the way things go. People stick with the things that are tried and true, and that has been the case for Taylor Swift for the last 15 plus years, if not longer. So I'd like to transition away from the doomer perspective and talk about the potential positive side effects of releasing on October 3rd. The two examples that I can think of are both Fifi Zhang and Boy Soda, who are releasing simultaneously as Taylor Swift. Now, the former is a dream pop, house, drum and bass, and electro artist, and the latter being an R&B artist. Now, for their respective genres, perhaps there are people that are shitting and pissing themselves and running with their tails between their legs at the thought of releasing or competing against Taylor Swift. Since both Fifi Zhang and Boy Soda have not changed their release dates and decided to stick with it, maybe they become the prominent figures within their own music space or genre. And I think that is a potential positive side effect, as perhaps there won't be that many releases in that same week. Ultimately, you have gambled on yourself up to this point, and why should an artist like Taylor Swift make you reconsider? If anything, you should be doubling down, because if you think you are that damn good and you are the best in the music business, you have to take a leap of faith of yourself at some point. So why not move with conviction and speak with conviction? Which brings me to my point overall, that you need to have a no fucks given, all in attitude. And I think by releasing on October 3rd, you are doing exactly that. And the third point I'd like to raise is about the scarcity of releases. And if we are to assume that is true, that artists will decide to reschedule their album for a later date, for artists like Boy Soda and Fifi Zhang, who only have really just got started with their music careers, well, now they become the prominent figures or go to the front lines of their respective genre and perhaps their own communities. So maybe they won't capture the ears and minds of people at Rolling Stone, Billboard, or Pitchfork for that matter, but perhaps they get discovered by an influencer who covers music on social media, or somebody that discovers new artists on YouTube. Well, good music is always in demand, and there's always somebody watching and listening for you. You just have to be patient. And that's why I have to give out my respect to both Fifi Zhang and Boy Soda to release their debut albums at the same time as Taylor Swift's latest release. That takes a lot of balls, and it'll let them know where they're at as far as their fandom goes and how their music is being received. That is a good test. And that's why I think it is ultimately a net positive to release on October 3rd. Now, if you have any thoughts or anything coming to mind for you for this specific topic, let us know in the comments. Would love to hear what you have to say. And this is going to be a wrap for the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been All Gas, No Trash, and I'll see you all on the next episode.